Thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining our session today. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whichever part of the world you are. And I thank you, everybody, for joining our session today. We have conducted a lot of sessions in past, and in a couple of months we couldn't do it because of various reasons. So now we are restarting or resuming our sessions on Azure Beginner Series. So in past we have done 4 sessions for Azure Beginner Series. So this is a series where we cover Azure from basic up. This is mainly geared towards people who are getting their hands on an Azure and then trying to learn Azure as they spend time. So we have decided to have beginner series session for them, and in past we have conducted 4 sessions. This is the 5th session today, and I'm Neeraj Kumar, as many of you know, and you are part. If you are not part of our AzureTalk Telegram group, please feel free to join our AzureTalk Telegram group. It is an IAM-based Azure community group where we all, come together as a group and try to answer your questions, especially on Azure. So we have our Azure Talk group, and then we also have our Azure DevOps group. So you can join both of the groups. So Azure Talk is t.me/Azure Talk, and Azure DevOps is t.me/Azure DevOps Pro. So please feel free to join our groups. If you have any questions, you can post those questions there. We also have our own Azure Talk YouTube channel. So we record these sessions. All these sessions are recorded and uploaded to Azure Talk. Sorry. And in case if you want to refer any of our past sessions, please feel free to head out to youtube.com/c/Azure Talk, and you will find all our recorded sessions out there. You can subscribe to that. You can put in your comments, and that would help us keep our sessions in good shape. So with that, I will not take a lot of time. My name is Neeraj Kumar. I am lead cloud architect. I'm also an MCD, Microsoft certified trainer. And I have total 18 years of industry experience, and I have been in this industry, IT industry, for almost 18 years. And out of that, last 8 years, I have worked on cloud technologies, starting with the private cloud, then moving into the public cloud. Azure is my first love when it comes to public cloud. Apart from that, I'm also Microsoft certified trainer. That means, and I'm an MCD for last 10 years. Which means I'm certified to train any Microsoft technologies. And with me today, I'm joined by Lalit Rawat, who is again who is also an MCD, Microsoft certified trainer, and he was conferred Azure Master of the Month award from Microsoft, and he was continuously Azure Master of the Month from India region for 2 months. And he brings a lot of knowledge, and he's volunteering today to take this session, so I really thank him. With that, we'll get into the agenda. What are we going to cover? So in today's agenda, we are going to cover about Azure Storage Account. That's the topic of the beginner series. Azure Storage Account introduction. We'll talk about what is storage account, why do we need it, how do we use it, and what are the different purposes that we can put use of Azure Storage Account. We'll talk about Azure Storage Account version 1 versus version 2, the 2 versions which are out there. So we'll talk about that. We'll also talk about storage account. There are different kind of storage accounts you can have. We'll go deeper into that. Then we'll talk about Azure Storage Account replication scope. So you can have your data replicated. You can have multiple copies of that data, and depending on your disaster recovery requirement, you can choose certain type of replication scope. So Lalit will talk about more on that. And then finally, we'll get into the Azure Storage Account creation and demo, and we'll examine the properties and how do we create storage account, all those things. Now, with that, I just for quality's sake purpose, I have muted the audience. And in case if you have any questions, please feel free to type in the chat, because we don't want to. We'll take all your questions there, and in case if you need to speak up, please raise your hand or type in the chat. We'll unmute yourself, and then we can take your questions. With that, I will hand it over to Lalit. Lalit, you there? Let's see. I see him, but just give me a minute. Lalit, you may have to rejoin. I see that you're not available on Skype. Yeah, all right, so let me go ahead and make him presenter. And all right.
Hi Neeraj.
Hello.
Sorry, it was just got disconnected. You able to hear me?
Yeah, there is a little bit of background noise, so if you can.
Hope now it is fine.
Yep, it is good. So go ahead. I'm going to hand it over to you, and you take it from here. Thank you.
Sure. I'll just start presenting my screen. Thank you so much for joining the session, and thank you Neeraj for your kind of introduction, and it's been a really great time that we will be doing those sessions for a couple of months. It's going to be more than 1 year. We started our AzureTalk group, and we are been doing this for quite a long. So let me just start my sharing. Let me know once you are able to view my screen. I'll start presenting it.
Yeah, we can see it.
So, as you know, earlier, just wanted to give a brief about why we have started the Azure Beginners of the series. We have conducted starting sessions for beginners, because we as an Azure, we just understand from the couple of feedbacks and from other participants who have joined in, the need and knowledge from basics. And so we have the first session we have understand to given the cloud models, and then second we went to the VMs and the operations, and these are the couple of other sessions which is one by one we have just get into the details and cover each and everything. So our beginners who wanted to understand or learn Azure technologies can be able to elaborate those things. For continuous to this is the second part of which is Azure storage accounts is really important. So in this Azure beginner series 5, I'll be covering Azure storage accounts. So we'll be what is a storage account in Azure. And recently there are a couple of changes where Microsoft has enabled a v2. Earlier there was a storage account v1 which is called as a general purpose account, and it's in v2 which is latest update which Microsoft initiated, and the blob storage. So let me just we'll cover up those things and the type of storage account and whether applications are required and the prerequisite to create a storage account, and we'll jump into the demo part. Let me just start with what is in storage accounts. So when this things comes in our mind, so what's in a storage account? A storage account is nothing but it just, you can say, you have a on-premises server. It's just like your hard disk, and or the hard disk. In the hard disk you will be creating a multiple volumes, right? When you create a multiple volumes, this is C drive, D drive, E drive. The similar way Microsoft Azure has designed their own segregate components to put the structured, unstructured data and the VSD files, which is when we create a VM. So those how we can keep the data in the on-premises in the C drive and D drive and E drive as per our choice. But here, as in it's a PaaS services, Microsoft itself design a storage account in a such a way that it is faster accessible, and the security was and everything that is the best, not the hardware, which has to be designed in such a way that we can add those stories. So Microsoft has planned those stories in the three ways. One is for virtual machine storage, where you can see the disk, which is where you will get the disk storage account here. Will get disk. So basically this is disk is nothing but it's a VSD file. When you create a VM, there's a VSD file would be generated, and operating system disk and another additional data disk, which is a storing in your a blob storage. And if you wanted to keep some files and the data and the files here, which is also there. And the second part is unstructured data. Unstructured data is your text file or your JPG file or your video file. So which is again those things are going to be into the blob. And let's say you have a data lake services, or your team is having some analytics services where just dump the data, how dump it to the big data or Hadoop or kind of solutions, and then through SQL databases connecting and segregating those data and doing an analytics and all, and getting those data. So those kind of unstructured data would be keeping into the unstructured data, which is your nothing but it's your blob. And the structured data, where your structures and the formulated structures which comes in, like as a tables. If you have a Cosmos DB, they have a couple of similar collections in the databases, where the data is in the proper format. When you run a query, you'll get an employee ID number, you'll get their address and every details. And another good example is Azure SQL DB, which is a PaaS services, which we can call as a database as a services. So all of those together, or we can say a storage account is just a container, or it's just a hard disk volume. Inside that, it's designed in such a way where we can have a virtual machine storage account, and the VSD files, unstructured data, and we can keep in structured data. So let's say a developer wanted to utilize those storage account for the developing prospects. They wanted to keep some files, or they wanted to connect those storage account through an API to collect the data and reflect to their websites, or collect the data and segregate it into the analytics forms into the database, and from the database it is getting connecting to the web services. So those kind of the scenarios which is comes in. So for each and everything there is a scenario which is stored all the data which is there in the Azure. Any kind of data that is going to be stored into the storage account, which you connect any PaaS services, IaaS or third-party solutions. Storage you have to define, and most of are aware. Yes,
Yep.
Nevis.
Thank you, Lloyd. So I'll just add on to top of this, so the storage, obviously any technology or any server that you build, you have compute, you have memory, and you have storage, right? So storage is the key because that's where you store the data. Now the storage is classified into three categories, which you could see on, with the color coded. We have color coded it, right? So the virtual machine storage, which is in the green color, and then we have unstructured data, then we have structured data. So virtual machine storage is, as Lalit pointed out, you have volumes. So you have C drive, D drive, E drive inside the operating system. Those are part of the volumes. So now for that, we make use of, the Azure storage account. So that's basically part of the block storage for Azure VM. Then we have files, which is like your network file share NFS, or you can access as an SMB, version 3. You can mount that as a drive, and you can access that over your Windows machine or Linux machine. So it's basically in NFS. Now these two are associated with virtual machine storage. Then you have unstructured data which is like which doesn't have a defined schema into it, right? So which can take any form. That's where you have object-based storage, which is in the blobs that comes into the picture. So some of the examples of unstructured data is your file, images, videos, text file, Word document, PowerPoint, anything and everything which doesn't have a defined schema that goes onto the unstructured data. Then you also have data lake, which is like Hadoop and big data. Those kind of information would come into that. Data lake has a lot of capacity to bring in data into this for analysis purpose. So that's unstructured data. Then finally you have structured data where you know the structure, where you know the format. So for example, you have RDBMS, Relational Database Management System, which is Azure SQL database, where you know that I have my table, I have my columns, I have defined property data type of each of the columns. So that is structured data. It has a defined schema. Then you have Cosmos DB, which is NoSQL table, and Cosmos DB. Basically both are NoSQL, but Cosmos DB is offers a much more advanced feature than table. So what is NoSQL? SQL is opposite of SQL, right? That means SQL is RDBMS. I wouldn't say opposite, but it complements RDBMS. So SQL is RDBMS, whereas Cosmos DB is not RDB. It's not a relational database management system. It's a key value pair. So you have a key and you store the value, and value can take any form. It doesn't have to conform to a schema. Though it's a structured data, but it does not have a schema of its own. That is a case of NoSQL. Whereas Azure SQL is an RDBMS.
Right, Menesh. So, hope you understand. So, let me just move to the next. And the next slide is which we have talked about. So, what kind of the storage account type? So there is a lot of confusion. What kind of the storage account, and few of the people comes into the storage accounts are two type. One is the standard storage account, and another premier storage account. So that is there, but there's a conflict between a kind of storage account and the performance tiers when it just comes in. So there is, you can see a three screen, where is the first one is a general purpose storage account, which is V version 1. So if you can see, when you just select in general purpose storage account here, you have in general purpose storage account V1, but down the line, if you see in the one month and the 2 month back, you won't see this V1. It's in the general storage account, and then you have a blob storage account, this one. So here's the main difference that we're going in selecting, and then it has a applications, and the performance tiers would be standard performance tiers and the premium performance tiers, which is generally known as a premium storage account and the standard storage account. Okay, and then you have to if you wanted to enable and secure. So these are this kind of the properties we work more on the demo part. And the main differences between, you can see, a V1 and the V2 is it is a version 2 is a combination of your general storage account V1 and the V2. As you can see, there is a main difference in the cool and hot storage account, right? So this features has been enabled in the V2. If you say the general workforce storage account V2, you'll get a access tier cool and hot. So when you select a V2 here, you can have a choice that you can either, if you are accessing hot storage account. So basically the hot storage account is nothing but where we are accessing the data frequently. Let's say you have some data for SQL Server and analyzing on the daily basis 1 lakhs, 2 lakhs, or 10 lakhs record, which is your comes into the hot. And the cool storage account is your archive. Let's say you have a backup copy of 2 terabytes or 10 terabytes or 40 terabytes that you can keep it there, and yearly once you are accessing those data. so which has the lesser cost compared to the hot access tier. So you can see you have an storage account similar, and you have a performance tier is similar equal to here. And this new feature which is which we are going and adding into the blob, a separate blob account kind is the blob storage there. So cool and the hot, which is a combinations would be there into the v2. So when you just select in storage account v2, you don't need to go anywhere. Either you can switch over also from the storage account properties when you wanted to have a data, a cool storage or hot storage. Let's say you're taking a backup or SQL database backup, or any kind of backup into the hot storage account that you're accessing, but down the line of 1 year you wanted to archive. At that time you can, if you can migrate hot to cool storage account, then your data automatically converted to a cool storage account, and whatever the charges, minimal charges would be there, that is there. So you can do that also. That is another facility. So these are main differences between a v1, v2 and the blob storage account, which clearly explain. Apart from that, so standard storage account is always backed by the magnetic disk, which is your just like a hard disk. The premium storage account or the premium storage account here is backed by your SSD disk, which is a solid state drive. Okay, which is a new mechanism, and it will provide the 7,500. So it has performance tiers would be higher. And another difference is if you just choose in between v1 storage account and the blob storage account. So when you choose a general purpose storage account, you have a capability to create a tables, queue, files in the blob. But when you just choose in blob, it will be a blob storage account. But when you choose in storage v2, general purpose v2, you have all the options. You can create a table storage, queue, file, blob, and even you have a cool and hot access tier, so you can accumulate as per your organization requirement or your organization requirement. Right, Neeraj?
Sure. So I think you have covered almost everything. I'll just add on top of that. So there are two kind of storage accounts you can have. So we talked about storage accounts. Those two kind of storage account is you have general purpose storage accounts, and then you have blob storage account. So when you try to create the storage account, you will see in the graphics also shown on the slide that you have account kind, and in account kind you select storage, general purpose, and within that you have v1 and v2. Then you have blob storage account. Now these two have, when you want to store a certain kind of data, then you will select. So for example, when you will select general purpose storage account, if you had to store your virtual machine hard disk, that's when you will use stored, standard storage account. If you have to use tables or queues which is used to decouple two applications, and it provides messaging capability. So and if you want to use that, you will use general purpose storage account. If you want to use file, Azure file, which allows you to mount share as as a drive, map drive, that's when you will use general purpose storage account. And in case of general purpose storage account, you have two performance tier. One is standard storage account, another is premium. Standard is backed by normal magnetic HDD hard disk, and the premium is backed by SSD. Now, when would you use premium versus standard? Premium you will use when you have application which is high IO intensive. For example, databases, for example, web servers, for example, app servers, and production environment, which requires a lot of input and output, and you require faster. As you know, SSD is solid state disk, which is very fast, and it provides high IOPS, input and output per second. So you would use premium storage account. Standard storage account, it's based on HDD magnetic disk, so you may use it for dev or QA kind of environment, or workload which does not require high IOPS, so that you can choose. Then you have blob storage account. blob storage account, you use it for storing any unstructured data. That means file. If you have any website where you're storing images or you're storing video to render it to that website, that's when you will use the blob storage account. Within the blob storage also you have two tiers: hot tier, cool tier, and then there is also a new concept called archival is also there. So archival has also come in the picture. So we'll talk about the hot tier. So hot tier is where, like, your data is readily accessible. You know that you will read it frequently, read it, need it. So in that case you will use the hot tier. Cool tier is when you know the data is there, but we may not require frequent access. Now the difference between hot tier and cool tier is it's cheaper. But with cool tier, it's almost 50% cheaper. But with cool tier, you pay a retrieval charge. So when you access that data at the point of access, you will charge on the retrieval charge. Whereas hot tier you are not, but then it's expensive. So this gives you tiering of data: hot tier, cool tier, and then archival tier is also there. Archival tier is where you store it for backup purpose, and you will not be able to retrieve that data immediately. It will take 4 to 12 hours to rehydrate. It's called rehydration. So from archival tier it will be rehydrated into the blob storage, and then you can restore it. So basically for archival purpose, and you can use on those. So these are the things. All right, go ahead, Lalit.
Right, Neeraj. Thank you. Thanks, Neeraj, for adding much. And let's just move to the replication and the storage account replications and the endpoint. So basically, if you can see, there are four kind of Azure applications are there, which is generally the name would be a short name we can say as a LRS, ZRS, GRS, and RAGRS. So basically, what is LRS? So locally redundant storage account, which is let's say if you are sitting in US, so you have an two storage account in US. Sorry, you have a two data centers in the US in the same region. So what would happen, or into the single facilities? So when you just choose an LRS, you have some data into your storage account. It will maintain the 3 copy of your data. Either it will be into the single facility with the same server, or it could be into the different servers within the same data centers and the same regions. If you have multiple data centers according to your regions, that it will have a 3 copies it will save. So if something goes wrong, you miss the first copy, still you have 2 more copies to get it recovered when you just raise a request with the Microsoft. When it comes into the ZRS, which is maintains the 3 copy of data but within your zone.
Lalit,
Yeah.
some people are having difficulty saying sound is not clear. I'm not sure if we can do something about your sound.
Okay. That's right. Now it is clear?
Yeah.
Okay. So let me just begin with the replications. So basically, replications is a strategy to replicate your data or to save your data for accidental deletions and all. So there are 4 kind of Azure applications. One is LRS, ZRS, GRS, and RAGRS. So when you just talk about an LRS, it will maintain your 3 copies of data within the single region. Let's say you have an storage account in East US or the West US, and it has a data center either into same server where your storage account is created into backend, or it could be the 1 copy into the same server and another 2 copy would be the different server. So if the 1 copy is deleted or missed, your data still be recovered from the another 2 copies. And the ZRS would as a zone redundant storage or the replications which maintains the 3 copies of your data, which will it will replicate your data within the zone. If you have a 2 data centers or the 2 regions, let's say East India and the West India, then it might have a 1 copy into the East Indian, 2 copy into the West India, or 2 copy into the East India and 1 copy into the East India. To within the zone, it will have a 2 copies. So when if anything goes wrong into my East India sites, I can still able to recover the data from the West India.
Yeah, so I think,
Same thing.
yeah, the
Yeah.
difference between LRS and ZRS, zone redundant storage, is LRS maintains 3 copies within the single region and within the single facility. That is one of the data center of Microsoft. So usually Microsoft has, region, and then they have availability zones, and then they have, within that availability zones you have multiple data centers. In case of LRS, it will maintain 3 copies within the single facility within the single data center. Whereas ZRS, it will maintain 3 copies, but it will make sure that it is not storing that in single facility or single data center. Rather than it will spread it across multiple data center, making sure that if data center is down, you still have access to that. So that gives you fault tolerance against the failure of an entire facility. So that's ZRS. And I think geo-redundant is where they maintain, instead of 3, they maintain 6 copies, right? And that is between the primary region and between the secondary region. So it goes beyond the region. So they maintain 3 copies in primary and 3 copies in secondary region, and that way you have guaranteed access to your data in case the entire region is down. Now GRS gives you guarantee against the failure, or the DR against the failure of single data center, whereas geo-redundant gives you the guarantee of data against the entire region's failure. So that's how it is. And I think finally it's a read access geo-redundant storage, which is RA GRS. What that means, that it's a GRS, however you will have a secondary endpoint from where you can access the data for read-only purpose. So usually you use RA GRS if you have, let's say, you have stored any data, let's say SQL backup, SQL backpack, DACPack, or any SQL database that you have. You can use it for reporting purposes. You will not be able to make any changes to the secondary endpoint, but you can read it from it. So it's like redundant copy for you, along with ability to access it. Whereas all above, we talked about LRS, ZRS, and GRS. All these three, they don't give you a secondary endpoint, whereas in case of if you create a RAGRS endpoint, you will get a secondary endpoint using which you can access that data for a read purpose. And I think Lalit has pointed out you have different endpoints, as I'm talking about the endpoints. So the way you access, depending on whether you're trying to access table or queue or file service or blob, your format of accesses. And by the way, it's not HTTP, sorry, it's HTTPS. There's a mistake. So the blob service account is HTTPS, and then your storage account name, whatever storage account name that you have given. So it could be like VM storage, it could be data storage, any name that you have given. Then .blob.core.windows.net. So that's the part of the URL. Now core.windows.net is like inherited by all kind of storage account types or storage account services. The portion which are going to change the storage account name and your what kind of service, storage service you're using. So for example, if it is table, it will be table.core.windows.net, and the name comes first of the storage account. If it is queue, it will be queue.core.windows.net. If it is file, it will be file.core.windows.net. So keep this thing in mind, that core.windows.net is the core of all the endpoints that you access it. So all right, I think Lalit, we can move on to the next slide.
Sure, Neeraj. And let's move to the next slide. Sure. In the last slide, not least, so we have a what are the prerequisites which we require to create in a storage account. So first is what kind of the name which we are providing, that is we have as per our organization standard name, which we can or it could be related to your projects or what kind of things. And the deployment model, as classic is out of picture from a couple of months, so we will always get and select for resource manager, and then what kind of account you require. Either it should be general purpose v1, v2, or the blob storage account. You can just drag down over here. You can select those things. A performance tier would be a standard and the premium. And one major changes, the one major differences are there into the standard storage account, that the standard storage account will support blob, file, queue, and tables, but the premium storage account is now only available for the VMs prospects. So if you have a requirement saying that no, I wanted to use in premium storage account for to keep the data and access frequently, which might get a better performance. So that is not available for now. Might in coming few months you might be able to have those facilities totally in place. And then what kind of the applications or the encryption and the data transfer, and what kind of subscription. If you have a multiple subscription, you will be going and selecting those subscriptions, subscription 1, 2, and 3, XYZ, and the locations. So based on your location, nearby location, let's say if I'm staying in India and somewhere, so my location is would be either could be in central India, or it will be in the west India, which is near to me. Similarly, who is sitting in US, there will be in a West India, West US, or the Central US, can be selected, where the latency would be less, and you will be able to get the better performance. So that is there from the storage account creations prerequisite. And let's move to the demo. Just give me 1 minute.
All right, so before we get into demo, what I'm going to do is I will go ahead and unmute the audience and we'll take questions. So if audience has any question, please feel free to speak up. So I'll go ahead and unmute the audience and let's spend 5 minutes taking questions. Thank you. All right, so I've unmuted the participant. You have to unmute yourself at your end. If you have any question, please go ahead.
Hi Lalit, hi Neeraj, this is Ashish Gupta from India.
Hey Ashish.
I would like to know, actually I wanted to learn about the Azure Data Lake storage. So are we going to cover in this session?
No, we will have soon. We have data platform SMEs, and we are going to collaborate with them, and soon we will have session on data lake. But we are not going to cover data lake in depth today. We just touched upon that to define, the different kind of data structure that's available with that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, I don't see any.
Hello. Hello.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
Please, I don't understand very well the difference between the replication, the local replication, and the geo replication.
So, okay. So maybe Lalit, you can bring back the slide of the replication.
Yep.
Go back. Yeah. So what is your so you don't understand the difference between zone redundant store and geo. Is that
the
right?
local zone and geo redundant.
Okay. So first thing, understand how many copies will be maintained. So in local redundant storage, there will be 3 copies that will be maintained. In case of zone redundant, it's again 3 copies, and in geo redundant, 6 copies. That's one difference. The second difference is where these 3 copies or these copies of data will be stored. That's the key. In case of LRS, you will have 3 copies, but it will be maintained in the single data center. If you're not speaking, please put yourself on mute. Thank you. That will help to maintain the quality. All right. So in case of LRS, 3 copies will be maintained in single data center within single region. So you have region, within region you have Microsoft has now availability zone, and within availability zone you have multiple data centers. So in case of LRS, all the 3 copies will be inside single data center or single facility. Whereas in case of ZRS, which is zone redundant storage, the 3 copies will be maintained, but it will be spread across multiple facilities. So, it could be 1 copy could be in one data center, another copy could be in another data center, but it will be part of the same region usually. But if there is not enough, data centers in that region, then probably it will span across the region. But as a thumb rule, zone redundant storage will maintain 3 copies across multiple data centers, not in single data center. Finally, you have geo-redundant storage, which maintains 6 copies, 3 copies within one region, 3 copies in other region. So the first region you will have 3 copies. There, it could be spread in one data center or multiple data centers. Similarly, in the secondary region also, Microsoft has a paired region for each of the Azure regions. So you have primary Azure region, you have secondary Azure region. Like you have US South Central and you have US North Central. These are paired region. Similarly, you have India South and then India Central. These are the paired regions. So anything happens, Microsoft will fail over from India South to India Central. So Microsoft build their region in a paired way. So that's how it does it. So in case of GRS, that is geo-redundant storage, it will be a 6 copy spread across 2 regions. All right.
Okay, thanks.
So
Hello, Lalit. This is Sagar.
Yeah, Lalit, Ashish here.
This is Sagar.
Yeah, Lalit,
Yeah.
I am having a question. Like, what would be the best use for table services? I have used in my couple of projects the blob services, but as of now, table, queue, and file services. In what scenarios we would be using it?
Sure. So let me take that question, Lalit. So you will use table for storing your user sessions information. It's basically NoSQL information. It's very fast accessible. You don't want a database overhead for storing the data. So for example, shopping, a user is shopping onto the website and card information about that user, you can store it NoSQL. Website users preference, the user changes the theme, color, all those information, you can store it in the table storage. Anything about user session information, you can store in table services. Queue service, you use it when you have applications, different components of application, and you need to decouple those applications. So for example, you can have a website which takes the upload from a user, and then you can have an application tier which takes that upload and processes it. So for example, let's say a typical example of an image processing application. So you will have a website which will take input, upload file from user, put it into blob storage, and then you will have your application tier reading from that blob storage and converting that image into a thumbnail or different sizes. In that case, you will use queue. And then finally you have file. File is if you have any legacy application. Lalit, if you can come back to this slide, please. Yeah, your file services, you will use the file services in case you have legacy application which requires SMB access, typical file share access. That's when you will use the file service. So you will mount this endpoint as a drive.
Thank you. So in our session, are we going to get the hands-on on table, queue, and file services today?
Well, we have covered table, queue, and file services in advanced series session. I can share you that link, and you can, go through that.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah. So not
Hi,
not
Neeraj. This
today,
is
but
Kiran.
yeah, Kiran.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kiran, go ahead.
In on-premises data move to the cloud, which type of services you can be table or blob? Which type of services can be used?
It depends on what kind of data you're moving. So,
Okay.
most of the time it will be a blob service that you will use. Table is for, application development, for storing, NoSQL kind of information. So most of the time it will be your blob service, or maybe you can use file service also.
Once the storage is created, you can be placed in your data to the storage. If changes is possible or not?
Pardon? Sorry, you cut out. Could you repeat it?
You can create the storage account now.
Yes,
You
you can.
you can create a storage account. The storage account you can place your data. It is changes it can be play changes can be you placed or not, and you can
So, Neeraj, let me ask you. So, what
Sure.
kind of changes you're looking for? Like
modifications. Any is
that
possible
is
or
that
not?
is that is possible. That is, if you wanted to, change and modify, that is possible on the things. But the things is, if you do a changes, you have to, either you're going to access those files either from the blob endpoints or APIs, and all you make the changes and keep the data over here. But it is not similar that you can, open over a web browser, or if you wanted to make some changes, you make the changes and upload the new files over there. But if you have a code or something, yes, you can, get it connect through endpoints and the APIs and all, whatever the changes you wanted to make it and keep your code ready over there. So you have to update every time when you make the changes. So those files has to update it to the storage account. There's no mechanism which can,
Okay,
auto update to the storage account.
okay, thank you.
I think we'll go ahead into get into the demo section, Lalit, and I'll try to answer the question in the chat. I see our team members already answering those questions, but in case there is anything left out, I will answer this
Sure,
question.
sure.
Neeraj,
So
this is Kalakar here. I have just the last question. So, if suppose I have created a service on table storage, can I change it to queue services again?
Oh, sorry.
just what
Again,
I
let's
mean,
okay,
suppose
this
I have created I have kept my data on table for table services. Can I
mhm.
change it to queue services again?
You cannot change that, but you can migrate that. If you really want to take out the data, you have to write your own, custom script or a custom application which will read the data from table and migrate it to the queue. But I mean, both are different. Table has
yeah.
different role and queue has a different role. So table is for, if you're storing NoSQL information, key value pair, and queue is for decoupling the applications. So, I mean, if you want, I mean, you can write your own custom script, but I don't understand, both this play.
No, Neeraj just wanted to let me just add in this. So first of all, in this storage account beginner series, so whatever the queries you have, right? So this is, a first session. Slowly we'll be, covering the blob storage account tables and all, tables and queues, and a little bit into the deeper sides in coming up sessions. Okay, so you don't worry, we'll explain those also. But to understand what are the differences between tables and the queue? So basically, tables, as Neeraj says, this is used for the NoSQL. When you keep the data into the tables, that is used to, storing your structured data into that. And the queue is used only for the messaging purpose, where you are writing in some message. Let's say if you let me just let's say if you have some message into that which is connecting to your applications. So when someone, let's say, xyz hit to this particular websites, I want to buy a xyz project, xyz product, and that will hit to the queue, and queue will connect to your CDN. If it find the data, it will send back over there. If not, it will connect to your tables or your storage account or the SQL databases.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
both the services are different. So you don't get confused that tables and all. No, queue is only for using for the messaging prospect, and they that can be no related to infra and all. Purely it is a developer job to reduce the workload from the website, reduce the workload from searching to the databases to make the sites to be faster. Can we use the queue?
All right. Yeah.
I'll,
Let's.
I'll I'll go in deep when we cover this.
Yeah. So I think
Yes, please.
we covered it. So let's get into the demo so that we can finish it on time.
Right. So I'm just
So I'll
uh,
go ahead and mute the audience. We're not taking any question anymore, but keep typing in the chat, and we'll answer this question in the chat. Lalit, you have to unmute yourself. You can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Sure. I'm just starting the session. So let's say if I have to create an storage account, so this dashboard is little change and lot of things would be here. I click on the create resources. There's some one way that I can always choose over here. I'll select my storage account and get it created from here. And the second way I have all the services. So if I'll say and click on my all services and just I have to search into the storage account here, and I'll click on the storage account to move to my storage account, and I'll create it from here. That's the second part. And the third part is you can have a search option to create a storage account from here. So you can just click on storage account and it will be routed to in this page. So let me just click on create a storage account. I'll be creating one AzureTalk storage account here and the resource manager here, and I'll just select the general purpose v1 storage account, and here you can see the differences. If I'll select a general purpose v1 and then I'll select a general purpose v2, it's in cool and hot storage. When I just select in blob storage, I do have an option only cool and hot storage. And in the blob storage, when I just click and create it, I will be only able to access the blob, nothing much. So let me just create a general purpose v2 storage, which is all there, and you can see you have a LRS GRS and RA GRS in v2. And let me just select in v1 what kind of a storage account. So LRS GRS and RA GRS would be available over here. In the blob you will get only so LRS GRS and RA GRS. So I think there is another change in the storage account that ZRS replications has been removed, but it is there down the line of 15 to 20 days back. But this is an enhancement which Microsoft has made it to. Let's keep it simple. LRS it will be in your region, GRS or RAGRS would be 6 copies. So you have an by default would be your RAGRS and the performance tier. So let's just create one storage account here, and I'll be creating one Azure storage account. I'll click on create here. It'll take a couple of minutes to get it created. So my when I just set this created, just the deployment would be started. Once you click on the deployment, all the deployment scenarios would be available over here. You can if you click on the output, so as it is starting, you don't get any output, but what are the inputs you have provided. So I have selected the storage account and my location, and a storage account type would be application GRS. This is a kind of a storage, and this could be fault. And here you can find that JSON template which is helping us to get it deployed, which is automatically getting created. So that's wonderful. Our storage account is created here. So in my storage account, if you can just see how a resource code, which is in AzureTalk, status would be primary and secondary region, both are available. I'll have an RAGRS and applications storage client is general purpose v1, and we'll have a blob file tables in the queue storage account. And if you can, look out into the down, you'll have all the errors and the kind of monitoring your how much your consumption of your storage account would be there, and the activity log if someone has performed any activities or any changes over here, you will be getting those storage account changes would be here. Let's say I have write something into my storage account, which is my ID would be rcloudweb@outlook.com. So this is my login ID which I haven't logged in, and modify it as I have created. If I wanted to give an access to someone, it is comes in access and management control, where I can add a multiple pupils. I can give an reader, writer, or the contributor permissions, which we have majorly covered in last sessions. So reader would be the people will have an access to read. Contributor can read and write the data on the storage account and modify it, and the owner, he can delete the storage account, create the storage account, but the contributor cannot delete the storage account. And comes into the tagging. Tagging is nothing but, let's say you have have to for billing purpose we are using. So let's say I have a project called AzureTalk. I just wanted to understand how much I'm paying for this particular storage account, what are the usage and all that will automatically this project tag would be there. The project is equal to Azure tag, and when I just search in my file and my subscription AzureTalk, it will show the accumulated billing. So it could be ₹1, 10 or 100 or whatever it is. So here is a few solutions where you can have a diagnostic and the solutions program. So you'll get a resource health is unknown, as we don't have anything. And here the few of the scenarios are available here, and you can if you're not able to delete the data, you don't have import or export, or you have a VSD disk is slow and all those kind of you can go on those solutions, and you can download the preference sites and the solutions you can get it enabled. And here's storage account explorer. So this is a new built-in which I just observed today. Earlier it's a software which we just go and download from the storage account. We can download from the Microsoft site, and we just explore those. So now I have a blob container files and the queues, everything would be listed over here if you wanted to work out or you upload any data or and all. Then we'll have a access key here. So this is if you wanted to provide in someone's data or the services here. So you can you can share the name and the keys, which we are definitely we are going to discuss those things into couple of other sessions in storage. And you'll have an configurations, what kind of the configuration you have done. And if you wanted to, let's say you have an V1, I wanted to upgrade it to V2, I'll just click on this, I'll upgrade, and I just provide my confirmation of while I'll say Azure, and I'll click on upgrade, and automatically my storage account will be upgraded. I can change my these things are locally redundant and all. I can change this replication. So it's just done. I can disable or encrypt, and if I wanted to encrypt this storage account, either using my own key then or configuring the key vault, I can utilize a key vault over here. So you don't get confused. On key vault is it has your encryption key, which is encrypt your data, or you can create your own key and encrypt the storage account, which is really possible. And then we'll have files and the virtual virtual network where we can get it integrated, and that will talk, and the shared access signatures where you wanted to provide an access temporarily for someone, or for APIs and all. You can select the date, modify, and what are the permissions you wanted to allow. You can just select, and you can go for it. And again, it's a blob services where, so when we have a the next sessions onto the blob and the files here, the next session would be blobs and the files here, so we deep dive on those two components in and try to explore those services, including the storage explorer. Okay, so I'm done with my demo, Neeraj. So do you want
All
to
right.
add in multiple, add anything? Yeah.
Yeah, so I think you've covered a basic overview of the storage account, and as you said, we will have a deep dive session, especially for the storage. So in the next upcoming session. But one thing I want to emphasize is Microsoft has released a new feature. If you can click on Access Control IAM for me just a bit. Yeah, so this is where I in a couple of days back I have posted in our Azure Talk Telegram chat, right? So if you're not part of our Azure Talk, please feel free to join our Azure Talk, and you can look at this. So a couple of days I posted that Microsoft has launched or introduced Azure AD integration of storage accounts. So now you can control access to the data inside your storage account with Azure AD, identities. That was not possible earlier. Now you can do that. So if you can, for me, just if you can click on the storage, so you have different options that you see the preview, right? So you have a storage blob data contributor. So if you can click on a storage blob or data contributor preview. Yep, that's a blob data. Yeah. So this will, allow this person, whoever person we will select, depending on whoever user, they can contribute, which means they can create content inside it. Now we can control access to this using a IAM, identity and access management. Earlier, if you had to really do that, you couldn't do that, or you have to write your own custom code. So earlier, the only two ways were option. That was a shared access signature, and your storage keys, right? So these are the two options that you have. But now, with this integration, it's possible to grant permissions based on the Azure AD identities. I think, yeah, so that's it. And plus in encryption, if you can go back into encryption just for me a bit, Lalit. So encryption supports Microsoft managed key, and plus you also have customer managed key. So you can have two options. You can let Microsoft encrypt on your behalf, or you want to bring your own keys. In that case, you can use your own key. And two options Microsoft gives you. One is either if you have your own key vault, from there you can retrieve it, or you already have a Azure key vault which you have, and you have stored a key there. You can specify that URI out there, and that way you will be able to encrypt the entire storage account. Now the thing is, this is going to, so let's say you already have a data. One thing to keep in mind, if you already have data and then you're turning on encryption, it will not encrypt the already existing data. It will only encrypt the data beyond that point. So keep that in mind. And it does support customer managed key. So that means, there are compliance reasons where you will require to have access to your own key, and you bring, so Microsoft Storage account does support bring your own key with that. So these two options, and then finally maybe we can touch upon a little bit on firewall and virtual network if you can click on that. So this is a new feature which is Microsoft has. In fact, the firewall was already there. We can use Azure Storage Firewall. Now here you can control which IP address range can access the storage account. This is again for security purpose. You will restrict it to only the IP range or the CIDR block of your office, of your corpnet, so that only the data is accessible from there. Along with that, Microsoft has also introduced something called service endpoint, which means now your traffic will not go over internet, rather than the traffic will be routed through the Microsoft backbone. So if you have enabled service point integration, in that case you can say that, hey, I want to accept traffic only from one VNet, only from a production VNet, or only from QA VNet, like that you can do that, or only from dev VNet. So you can also restrict that, so that VNet integration is also there as a part of this. So I think, yeah, these are the things that I wanted to cover.
Thank you, Neeraj, for your awesome explanation on the few features and the firewall and the virtual network, which is really help our audience. So it's time to wind up the session. So
Yeah, so I think when so this is like we are 5 minutes past our allotted time, but I thank everybody for joining our session today, and we will continue this beginner series, and we will cover more of Azure services. So in case if you have any question and we couldn't answer it today here, please join our Azure Talk group, which I have pasted the link in the chat, which is t.me/AzureTalk, and you can post your question there. It's a Telegram-based instant messenger community group of Azure. It's a community, pure community, no profit, no loss there. So everybody is trying to help each other, and we help each other as a community. So please feel free to join our Telegram group and post your questions, and if we couldn't answer your question, please feel free to post question there, and we will answer those questions for you, and other people will also answer those questions for you. So once again, thank you everybody for joining our session today, and we'll look forward to talking to you again maybe next week or next couple of weeks. So once again, thank you everybody for joining our session today, and we'll keep posting, and do keep an eye if in case if you couldn't join our session today, or you join in the middle, we'll upload the recording of this session onto our YouTube channel. So again, YouTube channel is our youtube.com/c/AzureTalk, or you can also do a search of Azure Talk in YouTube channel. You will find it. Thank you everybody, and have a great day, have a great weekend.
thank you, Neeraj, and
Thank
thank
you,
you
Lalit.
so much for joining the Azure Talk, this session, beginner sessions. Almost 35 participants we have today, and that's really a nice number. Thank you so much, and to grow your knowledge on Azure and all, will contribute onto the same sessions in a beginner